Our mission is to inspire, educate, and motivate young people across the Caribbean. This is the Vision Seekers podcast, where views collide, founded by Amanda Webley and Shawala Richards during the COVID-19 pandemic. But VSP is more than two. We are a team dedicated to seeking out and presenting solutions to the problems that matter to you through open and honest conversations. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Vision Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Webley, and today is an extra special episode because the points of discussion came from you guys, our listeners. We asked you to anonymously submit questions about being a young Christian in Jamaica. And here to answer those questions are some friends of mine. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, providing their name, their age, denomination, and length of time they have been Christian.
Hey everyone, I am Kareem Ismail. I am 21 years old. I am an Anglican. I go to St. Mark's Mandeville Parish Church, and I have been a Christian for all my life, 21 years, because I was baptized as a baby. So I've been a Christian all my life.
Hi everyone, so my name is Noia Lawrence, and I am 21, and I've been a Christian since I was 16, so that's 5 years now, and I am an Adventist, and I go to Seventh-day Church of God.
And our final guest for today.
Hello, good day. I am Shanelle Trowers. I am age 21. I attend a Pentecostal church. I was baptized at age 9, and I have been a Christian for 10 years.
All right, guys, thank you for coming. So to start off, I want each of you to give one misconception you think about Christianity that you want to debunk right now.
Okay, I'll pip in quickly. One misconception that I think some of us have, that persons have brought to me, is the idea that Christianity is a slave master's quote unquote religion, and I would challenge them to look past. Challenge them to look past the colonial lens and see that Christianity was started in Jerusalem. It spread throughout Northern Africa and Europe. So it's a faith for all peoples, all ethnicities. At Pentecost, in the scriptures, we see the Holy Spirit came upon people, Egyptians, Medes, Persians, Arabs, everyone. So I challenge them to think of that. And that the church had persons from these other countries, North Africa, who were church leaders and helped shape the Christianity that we have today.
All right, Kareem, anything to add, guys? Noia, Shanelle, sorry.
Well, one misconception is, from my experience, that we intend to be considered perfect with no flaws. And personally, I would just like to say that we are not perfect. We're really just trying to be the best versions of ourselves, trying to be righteous. You know, we have some flaws where sometimes we get a little angry at times and we don't have that much wisdom, but we really just try. So we're not as perfect, or nobody is perfect, honestly, but we're not perfect as people think we are.
Okay, so I was just about to say that as well. Along with that, the fact that they believe church is boring, right? So outside of it, yes, you can look at it and say, oh, that looks boring because of the standards or whatsoever. But when you actually get into it and they're a part of it, you have a purpose in church, you will get to know that it's not boring.
All right, thank you, guys. Those are all good points. At the start of our meeting, I asked Kareem to introduce himself. He had said that he has been a Christian all his life because he was baptized at birth. Do you guys all believe that to be considered a Christian, you have to be baptized?
Okay, I'll jump in on this one. Yes, I do believe that in order to be a Christian, one is to be baptized. I would say that faith is a part of the process where we come to say, I believe, and you come to recognize who Christ is. But I do believe that to complete that process, baptism is important and is necessary. I don't know if Noia and Shanelle, they might have other views on that.
No, actually, I was going to say that yes, I do believe that as well. So I completely agree with Kareem. the whole way. You have to add faith to it. It's not just dipping in the water, it has to involve all the processes. Well,
A commitment. Yeah. Shanelle, anything to say?
Yes, likewise, I do believe you have to be baptized. Yes, I do believe that as well.
All right. So moving right on to our next question. Why did you decide to become a Christian? Beginning with you, Shanelle.
Okay, so for me, honestly, it wasn't about what anyone had to say because they normally told us that you should have your own experience or conviction rather. For me, it was just giving a short answer. Don't make it short. My experience, I was on the road driving with my dad. None of us were saved at that time, and near to Flatbridge, and something just said to me like, "What if you crash now and you guys die? You're going to hell because you haven't been going to church, haven't been worshiping God, etc." And I just started to pray. And meeting an accident, we almost went into the water, and we actually were so close, but we didn't. And I believe if I didn't pray that prayer, I would have been dead. You would know me today. And that was my personal experience. And it couldn't have been, who could it be that gave me that thought, to pray because something might happen? It must have been God, along with many other experiences. That was when I was in grade 6, and that convicted my heart to serve the Lord.
Wow, that's very powerful. Kareem, what made you become a Christian?
Thank you for that question, Amanda. I must say I'm going to try to rephrase the question. Since I was baptized as an infant, I'd say what has caused me to remain as a Christian, especially because my half of my family is Muslim. So I've been challenged with this question: why are you a Christian? Why are you choosing to remain as a Christian? But for me, I'd say it's many experiences. However, I really have come to recognize that the Christian idea of God is that God is relational. He is not just being a person who will say, do this, do that, but he's willing to step into a situation. I remember when I was younger, I went through a very dark time in my life as a young man. I don't want to go into the details of it on the podcast, if that's all right. But I felt that no one else understood what I was going through. I couldn't go to my parents. I couldn't go to my friends about it. And I was really drowning in my own despair. But it was because of this Jesus who I say I believe in. He stepped in. I was only able to go to him with my issues. I was only able to put my heart before God and say, God, this is what I'm struggling with. And trust me, Amanda, he's on time. He comes in, he steps in. He says, my yoke is easy. My burden is light. Cast your cares on me. And that sense of him being relational, him understanding what we go through, and him saying, come with me, my son. I am with you. And that really has shown me that this God who I say I believe in cares about me. Noia, I know Noia has another experience.
Yes. Noia, we invite you to come and share your experience with us now.
Right. So my experience is a little bit different. Well, actually very different. So I went to why I became a Christian was because I went to a gospel concert, right? And it's my first time, and I never really went there. Keep in mind, from I was born, I've been to church, right? I grew up in church. They trained me, made the person I am today. But it's just I never really took God seriously. Let's call it that. And so as I go, I got
never really have a relationship, as Kareem put it, a personal relationship.
Yes, yes, exactly. So because of that, I decided to go to the gospel concert, but then we were singing and stuff, and like something came over me, and it was very like overwhelming. And at that moment, I felt like conviction to like on my knees and worship. And so it's like it was a life-turning moment for me. And that was when I knew that it was my calling. Like I was taking too long to come. And so that's why I decided to become a Christian. And so, yeah.
So all three of you had a powerful encounter with God, one way or another. Well, something I want to ask. If you look at the church right now, across the world, but let's bring it to Jamaica, closer to home. Why do you think the church is made up mostly of women and older persons? Why aren't more young people in the church today?
All right, may I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so there are many, many reasons. So let's start with this. So why there are less young people in the church per se? Most times when you come to a church as a young person, sometimes the older ones, they tend to judge you based on probably what you're wearing, where you have been or stuff like that. Because of the way they were socialized, they believe that you were socialized like that, but they don't realize that we were all socialized differently. So they sort of judge you, and then the young person feel bad and then don't come back to church. Other times, where I say less men, but women and older folks. So I think there's a standard in society as well where when males are Christians, they seem weak to others, I can say safely. Also in society, it encourages males to have multiple partners as it makes them somewhat higher than other males in society, and the church does not encourage that. Also, the dress and, certain stuff that you can't do. So the standards of the church, they're pretty high to meet, I can say. So some, especially males, like I said, because society kind of pressure them a little bit more than us with the church thing, the Christianity thing. So yeah, that's what I believe, because of the standards as well as some criticism that might occur in the church.
Noia, Kareem, you want to jump in and add?
I'll let Noia jump on it, and then I'll come in after.
All right.
I have a slightly different view.
Okay, well, I agree with Shanelle, right? Because I was thinking about the fact that I have experienced judgments for clothes and what I wear and stuff, and just the whole standard of going to church and the rules. As Shanelle said, it's quite high, and so a lot of young people intend to shun away from that. And I go back to the judgment, it's quite strong. So the judgment can really make them feel very ostracized, and so they will not go back to church and stuff. So that was really just my main point of thinking.
I agree with Shanelle and Noia. I double down on what they're saying, but I also think, in agreement with them, it is indeed a part due to our culture. Just to remind me of your question, Amanda, you had said, why do you think the church is made up of women and older persons?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and I think the church presents us, as Shanelle said, with an understanding of men who are responsible, faithful to their wives. They care for the poor, and the hungry. They protect the vulnerable, and they're willing to sacrificially give up their life for their family and their friends. While our culture, I think, dictates that a real man, a top chopper, is one who is a gallus, who doesn't care for the vulnerable, not really willing to live sacrificially for others. And I think that kind of challenges young men. And sometimes we don't have the examples of men in the church living out what the church is saying. So the young men hear that they're called to be this, or that the church is calling young men in the community to be this. I think we need to see the examples, and sometimes we don't see the examples of men actually living that out, but we see more female examples of living that type of life out. And I do think that the elderly people, why elderly people predominantly make up the church. I must say I love the elderly. And my church has a lot of them, but I think as youth, we like to say, boy, I'm going to live. I have to go live my life first. I want to enjoy my life first. And I think as elderly people, they have gone through, done that and seen, and have come to recognize that this God is who he says he is, and they're committing their lives to him. That's my take on it.
All right, Kareem. Shanelle, you had another point to make? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just really agreeing with what Kareem said. We not seeing a model in the church that reflects what they teach, because that's what most young people, not just young people, but everyone, especially the young people though, they look at people in the church to see if they're doing what they are teaching others to do. And sometimes they don't really, because they say, oh, I saw my neighbor at the party and etc. And then Sunday she come clapping and acting as if, oh, she's holier than everybody. So I really agree with you, Kareem, that sometimes we don't practice what we teach. So that's why we have a lack of young men and youths in the church.
All right, so still on that point, Kareem, you said something about the culture in Jamaica where men, to be a real man, to be considered a real man, quote unquote, you have to be a girl, is a bad man. So I was speaking to a friend the other day and he was telling me that he feels embarrassed about being a virgin, especially when everybody else around him is not. He says that he has lost some friendships and some romantic connections because of it. Can you relate to my friend? And if he's listening right now, what would you like to say to him?
Boy, I can definitely relate to what your friend is saying. It's not easy. I can tell you, being a young Christian guy who is willing to see that he is a virgin, willing to say he's chaste. But what advice I'd give him in this particular situation is, first, I think it's good to find a community of guys who are willing who love being chaste, who love choosing to live their lives in this, or to be virgins, and don't see it as a burden, young men who are able to affirm you and to say, come man, let's do this for Jesus, or let's live well, because we're trying our best to remain chaste for the sake of ensuring that we have a full understanding of love when it comes to marriage. So I think it's very important for him then to find that group of guys who would affirm him and who would say, come man, let's do this together, because he's really going against the current. He's going against the tide by himself. So it's hard. But when you have that group of guys who are to keep you in check and say, let's do this together, and we're able to talk about your struggles with it, because it's not that we don't want to have sex. I want to speak frankly. It's not that we don't want to have sex. I know that we don't have the desire, but we need a group of guys who would affirm us and say, come man, let's do this together. So I think he needs definitely to find a group of young men to help him on the journey.
Right, community is important. Just to still on the topic of remaining chaste, do you think there's a prejudice in the church where there's more emphasis on a female remaining pure before marriage, abstaining from sex in comparison to males? Noia, I've thrown this question to you first.
I am so happy you threw it at me first, because I want to say something so badly. So what I want to say was, yes, there's a strong difference between how they want women to stay, say, a virgin for men, till marriage, and then compared to if a man does not or will stay a virgin. And let me give you an example. A close friend of mine, she got pregnant at the age of 16, right? And she's also been to church for her whole life. But just because she got pregnant at the age of 16, right, she wasn't married, she was ostracized. She was treated really badly. She was judged heavily, right? That's why she never came out to church. But then I found it weird because a man came, he was a visitor, right? And he was not married. So he had his child out of wedlock. And the church was more open to accept him and his child compared to my friend and her child. And I was like, that's quite weird. So I do agree there is some strong prejudice there. So that's my point.
I know Kareem and Shanelle have a lot to say. Kareem, go ahead.
Amanda, I have a slightly different. I'm going to let Shanelle go before me because I have a slightly different view on this one.
All right. So first of all, I want to say, just to remind us all that even though we're Christians, we're still human. So not because you're a Christian, you're supernatural. All right. Just that point first. All right. Now I'll explain. So yes, there is a slight more pressure on the female to keep herself from marriage and stuff. But why I believe that is because men could be having sex and you probably don't know, and then but the woman, it's possible that she can get pregnant, and that's why I think most of the times they get pregnant and people, oh, she was having sex, but the man can be there having sex but he's not getting pregnant, so we cannot know. We don't see any evidence that he's having sex. And so I think that is why people always lean to the female side, that, oh, females, keep yourselves. But also, I'm just saying that it's because we're really human, so we're looking at the things that we can see more or more evidence of. That is why it seems to lean mostly to the female than the male. But I do believe they encourage both genders to keep themselves.
I agree with you, both of you, Shanelle and Noia. That's why for me, it's yes and no. I think that I would say the church in general has a balanced approach at times to encourage both sexes, male and females, to be chaste. But I do think that for us in Jamaica at times, we have a sense, I don't know if it's a sense of culture that comes through where we almost reduce sexual purity and are going to say even modesty to what we see, how we dress. And if that is the case, then young men almost get the green light because we are fully covered, regardless, what we wear, we're fully covered. But I think that's because we tend to reduce modesty to how we dress, instead of our behavior. So I would say, for example, we're still called as Christians to be modest in how we speak to young ladies, how we behave towards young ladies. Am I causing this young lady to feel uncomfortable? So I think that too many times we just reduce it to things that we can see, as Shanelle said, things that are evidence of our dressing, and not focus on the heart, on the matter of the heart position. And so I think that's why young ladies tend to get a lot of prejudice towards that, particularly.
All right, just a follow-up question. A listener asks, what is dating like as a Christian? Anybody want to answer this one?
I can take that one. So, dating as a Christian. All right. So from the outside, it will look hard, it will look annoying, and it will just look, no, sir, I can't bother with that. However, dating as a Christian, it is not bad actually. What they want you to do is just to tell someone, for example, your pastor or anyone you feel comfortable with in authority, right, of the church. Okay, so the guy should go and say, okay, I'm interested in Shanelle or etc. Let them know what they want to do is guide you, because they know that we're human, the flesh is the flesh, and you're going to have the feelings, you're going to want to have sex. Come on, where we were made to do that, right? So what they do is really guide you. So for example, if you're going on a date, they would advise that you don't go alone. You go with someone. You can bring a friend or two of your friends. I have a double date, but don't just with the couple of you alone. It's not bad actually. It's not as bad as it is looking on the outside, really.
As it's imagined to be, right?
Right, as you can imagine it to be. It's not terrible at all, because you can spend the time. And first of all, when both of you have the same mindset, both of you are Christians, then it won't be hard. But if you're dating a non-Christian and you're a Christian, it's going to be hard to maintain your standards, but it's not as bad as the society makes it look.
Anything to add, Kareem or Noia?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I didn't want to say anything honestly, because I don't have any experience with that world yet. I have yet to experience it. I'm looking forward to it. So that's why I just left it for the others to say. Yeah, that's really just my take.
What I'd say on that is that I really haven't experienced it, and I'm not averse to it. I think it's something good. The only way you can really find somebody to spend the rest of your life with is by dating. But what I would say is that what I've heard, some good practical wisdom on it, is that it is suggested that when you're dating, see the person as a child of God, regardless if the person is a believer or not. See the person as a child of God, and then that would dictate how you treat the person. However, for the young man who is thinking of dating, it is suggested that you don't send a text. Don't send it by text. Don't say, I like you. Be confident. Apparently, girls want the young men to be confident, to go to them and say, I like your personality, and I think we can go on a date. So, and I would like to go on a date with you. So, for the Christian young man listening, be confident. You think you like that young lady, go and tell her, and plan the date well, and just continue to remember to see her not as an object, but as somebody's daughter, somebody pitney, and as a child of God. And that would, I think, would dictate how we date.
All right. Wrapping up, I want to ask, what do you think is the single most difficult part about being a Christian at your age? Starting with you, Kareem.
Okay, I would say being a Christian at my age is the most difficult part. Is really that in order for us to be, in a way, genuine believers, we have to be going against the tide of peer pressure regularly. Everything is thrown at you. I can say, for example, when I was at school, people would call me pastor, and that is not really a good title at that time. Now I've come to accept the title. I think they said I sounded like a pastor, but they would say pastor in front of everybody. Pastor, you say we can. Let me be frank with you guys. We can. You say we, if we masturbate, we can't masturbate. How you expect for release it? And I'd say, I really don't believe we should masturbate. I don't believe we should be back in our face. And then they would say, boy, so you tell me, say, they all are going to ride up in my back. They're going to give me acne and all of these things. They will ride up in my back, and I'm going to have blue balls. And just being able to go against the tide, to be very frank with them, and to be willing to tell them that this understanding of how God has made us, how he has called us to be, and it requires a sense of faithfulness to God, to say, no, Lord, I know this is a problem that I face, and it's not something we want to explain to them that you too face that issue, but also that he gives us the grace to be faithful to him and to live that out well, that he tells us to live like this because it's for our good. It is not for something that would cause us to be hurt or to have some problems in the future. So that happens at times. And I think that what makes it, that really does make it quite difficult. However, it's good. It's a good difficult. It helps you to share your faith more and to be willing to engage. I don't know if Noia and Shanelle have other experiences.
For me, I like Kareem's perspective. I really like Kareem's perspective. But for me, the hardest thing in my Christian life was forgiving. I had a really hard time moving on, and I had a lot of trauma that was building up, and I had to learn through Jesus to let it go and make peace with myself. I'm still struggling with it, but compared to what I was, I have reached a very far length. So forgiveness was my hardest difficulty. It was my difficulty. Yeah.
And finally, Shanelle.
All right. So for me, it's like Kareem said, the peer pressure. It's real. So, us Pentecostals, we don't wear pants and those little things. And then people that say, yeah, young girl, stop dressed like old woman. Them little things there. Like they believe because you're a Christian or other Pentecostal, it won't look good. They're going to look like an older man and stuff, which is a stigma. And it is also wrong because I'm a very hot Pentecostal girl. So, yeah.
Of course, no doubt.
It's the peer pressure. And, they're like, you can't go to parties. You can't do this. You can't do that. But I was grown in it. So it's like my society or my norm then. It's not what's normal for society out there because I was grown in it. So,
you're in a certain community.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me because that was what I was grown in. So it's like, oh, that's my norm. That's what I do every day. So it's really just the peer pressure. Like Kareem said, so I just totally agree with that.
We spoke about the challenges of being a Christian, but I want to get into the benefits before we close. What is one thing that you really love about being a Christian? How has becoming a Christian improved your life?
Okay, so I'll go first. Honestly, it has helped with my personal development. It makes me view situations, from a different light. Like certain things that won't just get as upset. Like Noia said earlier, sometimes we can get upset and stuff, but sometimes it keeps you on your guard, right? And also the word of God that we read and stuff, it encourages me. It, like I said, it keeps me on my guard to stuff like be slow to anger. Sometimes something just upset you. And you just have to remember that, you're a child of God. You have to be different. And words like that, be slow to anger. Those, the word just keeps you. But like I said, it helps me to be a better person. I'm slow to judge because who am I to judge? Being a Christian, reading God's word, having encounters with Him, He's the only judge here. Who am I to judge? And it also keeps me aware. Like, I'm not just here enjoying this world and everything as if I'm never going to leave. It reminds me that you can be here now and not here tomorrow. And it just helps me to tell myself that come Shanelle, all right, it motivates me to build my spiritual life and everything. And I don't know, people see me outside as very friendly. That's not me. Honestly, I asked the Lord to work on me. So yeah, being a Christian, it helps with my personal development generally.
Kareem and Noia, I'm going to ask you to keep it short. 1 point. The good part about being a Christian. What's one thing that you really love about being a Christian?
Very brief. Just knowing that we have a God, the creator of the whole world, who says, cast your cares on me. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. That He listens, He's there for us. And more so, though He calls us to live in a certain way, we can rest knowing that He truly understands who we are. That's what I'm going to say. And I want listeners to know that He's knocking at the door and He knows you by name. Go ahead, Noia.
Yes, I agree with Kareem and Shanelle. My point was the same: personal development, patience. Christian life really teaches you a lot of patience. It makes you treat other people better, and it makes you handle situations in a better way. So that's really just my point.
So today's conversation, honestly, this has been my favorite episode so far. But sadly, that's all the time I have for today. In this episode, we examined the lived experience of young Christians in Jamaica. We dispelled some myths about Christianity, gained some insight, and addressed some of your questions about the beliefs and lifestyles of committed Christians. Next episode, we'll be discussing what it's like to be a non-Christian in a predominantly Christian nation. Our special guest for that episode will be Amrit, an university student who's Hindu from Trinidad. Don't miss it. Before we go, I'd like to leave with you this quote: be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Thank you for listening. Until next time, walk good. Hello, guys. I am Amanda Webley, one of the co-founders of the Vision Seekers podcast, and you have just listened to episode 7, Life as a Young Christian in Jamaica. At this moment, we'll have a poem presented to you by Tyrese Henry. Enjoy.
Life as a Christian boy. This road I walk, this journey I partake. I live critical of every step I make. The friends I have, the people I see, are all aspects of society influencing me. The things I think and the noise I make are all the responses of a Christian and to some words of a faith. I know I'm a Christian, I'm a sinner indeed, still battling my demons until death I'll be free. This road I walk, the sins I awake, the voices I talk, these ungodly illusions I create. Only me being a Christian walking in faith. I know little of my journey or the situations I'll face, but such is the Christian story nowadays in this human race.
Life of the Christian boy.
This has been an episode of the Vision Seekers podcast. Together we can create a society that benefits us all. Send us an email at thevisionseekers.podcast@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube and Instagram at The Vision Seekers Podcast and follow us on Twitter at Vision Seekers JA. We look forward to hearing from you.